out of college and had to look for work, I came in at the worst time. Like, everyone else will say the same. Like, there were no jobs, but there were jobs, but they weren't jobs you wanted. I'll explain. There were all kinds of openings where they were like, we do consulting work and marketing for Fortune 500 companies. Do you want to do that? And at 22 years old, I was like, oh yeah, man. That's what I want to do. I want to be a consultant. That was my dream job, which that dream died very easily. But I was like, all right, I'm going to apply to this company. And first and foremost, anybody that says the work they do is for Fortune 500 companies, what it turns out to be is what you're going to do is you're going to work in a Sam's Club and harass the hell out of every passerby about switching to AT&T or DirecTV or Dish. And you're going to annoy them some more, and you're going to have quotas of 4 sales per hour, even though it's impossible to do because each sale takes 20 to 30 minutes. And we're going to pay you hourly, but it's going to be really confusing. It's going to turn out to be less than minimum wage, but we can pay you that. And those jobs were always hard. Because they didn't pay you anything, and they train you, and they'd be like, oh, well, it's not for you, it's not for you. We'll have another you in about 20 minutes. Matter of fact, they're over there training. And they'll always pull well, after 3 weeks, you move up to assistant manager. Then after 2 months, you become manager. Then in 6 months, you become Ultimo Dragon manager. And then in 12 months, if everything works out the way it's supposed to be, you become program director, and you become in charge of your own program. And that means you can hire people to be sales associates and make them go through this basically pyramid scheme process, because that's what it came down to. Because after 3 weeks, you move up to this. After 6 weeks, you move up to that. And the people that did it were always gung-ho people. Like, the people that stuck with it were always like, oh man, you'd be perfect for this. I've only known you for 2 minutes, and I can already tell you're going to be really good about annoying people about these random products we sell. Because they didn't always have like good products like AT&T, because you could sell that. Because if you could save people money on cable, they'll do it. I know I would, and gladly. But you might be selling pillows, and you're going to be harassing everybody that comes by, from old ladies to, and people shopping don't want to be bothered with shit like that. They don't. But they'll train you and want you to do it. Because I went through countless interviews for jobs like this, and they'd fool you with, oh, guaranteed weekly pay. It's guaranteed weekly pay if you meet the minimum requirements. If you don't make any sales, they don't pay you. And they don't have to pay any money to train you. That's why those jobs were always hiring. They always had openings. Like, the one specifically I remember is you sold DirecTV in Best Buy. They still exist to this day. Because you work 6 days a week. You don't get overtime because they set up your pay to reflect the lack of OT. They're going to cheat you out of overtime because they're going to say it's a straight commission job when it kind of is and kind of isn't. And that leads to confusion because you don't know how much you're getting paid. But that one in particular, a lot of my friends got duped by it. They take the job and they're like, but wait a minute, this is not a good job, because you don't have specific hours and you have impossible quotas to meet to move up in the scheme of things. Because one job I took and worked very briefly, it was along similar lines. You did marketing at Sam's Club, but except they compartmentalized it more than anybody. You had sales associates were all under a mentor manager, and they controlled specific like items you sold. Like, the one I was going to do was for some kind of like mini pizza, which might have been a good seller, but they expected you to work when you weren't on the clock. Because to this job's credit, they at least paid minimum wage. But they're like, well, about 9 o'clock tonight, y'all got to go and set it up. Well, we get paid right. No, this is just gratis. You're going to do it for free. And that guy that ran my program, he sent about a text every minute because he wanted to show what a great manager guy he was and his high standards and how he stuck with the program. And because everybody was like that stuck with it was drinking the Kool-Aid. They would tell you just all kinds of bullshit. Oh yeah, man, when I started I was making $2,000 a week, which I don't believe that. There is no way you could make that much or they would pay that much. If you even came close to making that much, they would cap it. Because they'd be like, I don't want somebody entry level making that kind of money. I want them to make just enough to keep them coming back. And then we'd have these daily meetings where you had things you had to learn. And really, I only worked there about 4 days, but I got quite a lot out of the deal because they'd do cheers and they'd be like, well, you got to learn how to, our proven program on how to sell. And for some people that may work, like you got to use our tried and true method of just harassing the customers until they get angry. But in some cases, like they want to do it your own way, because I have my own way of selling. I don't want somebody else telling me how to sell unless it's like constructive criticism from somebody who knows what they're doing, not somebody that's been there 2 weeks longer and is just really and learned 55 pages of their method versus the 50 that I've done. I don't dig that. And the guy that ran the marketing was in charge of the whole thing. If the other guy sent a text every minute, this guy was sending a text every 30 seconds. And it was always these group texts that were just annoying as hell. So those jobs, stay away. If they say consulting or sales, weekly pay, just read the fine print, read everything on it, because they pay horribly. And if you're not making sales or you get a lousy program, you're not going to make any money. But they preyed on people like me that were desperate for a job and were like, hey, they're hiring somebody in a semi field I want to do. So I'd apply and I'd get interviews and I'd just be like, oh, this is not something I want to do. I didn't smarten up until I accepted that job because I didn't make a dime. In 4 days, they didn't pay me anything because they claimed they paid minimum wage, but I didn't meet the minimum requirements, so I didn't make anything. But it wasn't worth driving an hour for minimum wage. It just wasn't worth it. So that's what led to me not taking those jobs. And I still see them to this day. They still have them. They're like guaranteed weekly pay. You like to work from home and want guaranteed commissions. Even interviewed for one several years ago where the guy was like, I only take people in my program that are athletes. Are you an athlete? No, not really. Well, I was an Olympic level wrestler, so I want people that are athletic. And all I thought was, well, that's great, man, but what does that have to do with sales? Nothing. It just meant he wanted to hire people that he thought were good looking. So it's just be aware of those jobs. Just be weary of them. If they say you can move up in 3 weeks or 3 months or 3 days, that is not the place for you, because that means they have such a high turnover. That is the only way they can keep people, is by guaranteeing those promotions that don't pay you anything. Because in a lot of cases, if you get promoted, you'll get paid based on the people you recruit. Kind of like a pyramid scheme where the person at the top makes all the money. So you've hired people, they have to make sales, and you have to make sales, and you're both standing in the same place in Best Buy to make sales. So you're competing with the people that are going to make you money. So it's just beware and be careful.